Hey everyone, Alysa here. So I just wanted to say thanks to my latest patron, Tierney, for supporting Friends with Alysa. What's that you say? What's Friends with Alysa? Friends with Alysa includes all three of my podcasts, including this one, Best Forevers, Fatalities, which focuses on friends chatting about true crime over tea, and the upcoming Unrequited. So here's the thing. Patron gets goodies and bonus stuff for all three pods. It's a great deal. It's a 3-for-1, if you will. So I appreciate you becoming friends with Alysa Tierney, and you can too by checking us out on Patreon. You're listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits, a podcast that encourages you to love more on your friends and to further consider the issues that plague friendship. I'm Alysa Lucas, and as a lover of TV, I get especially excited about shows that focus on friendship. A big surprise, I'm sure. But I also love an interesting plot like the latest from Freeform, Cruel Summer, which aired its season finale on Tuesday, June 15th. Like a week ago. So if you haven't seen the show and you're planning to, you haven't watched the end of it, you haven't seen the finale, enter at your own risk because there will be some spoilers. We will try to say spoiler alert before that, but know that you are risking it all by entering this podcast today. And that's what's happening today is my friend Amanda is here to talk about this really cool and cruel show. And there's so much to say. I have so many thoughts, and I'm sure Amanda does too. Hi, Amanda. Welcome to Best Forevers.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Are you excited to talk about this scandalous teen show from Freeform?
Yes, it should be a good episode.
I think so. I love when, I already said it, but I love when shows are about friendship, and then, it's got some of the light stuff, it's got a lot of the dark stuff, and you can kind of dabble in. And I think it's important to, even if it's media and it's extreme, it's still important to reflect on friendship and how they might operate in our life, right? So what we're going to do first is give you an idea of what this show is about, because some of you are like, hey, I just want to hear you talk about friendship, but maybe I don't watch TV, and that's fine too. Like, come along, join us. Come with us on this journey. And so what we're going to do is give you a rundown about what the show is about, and then we'll start talking more specifically about the friendships. So, Amanda, do you want to be Jeanette or do you want to be Kate?
I can be Jeanette. That's fine.
Ooh, okay. Oh, what does this say? We'll talk about that later. What does it say about our personality in terms of who we most relate to?
There's probably a BuzzFeed article about that. or
Which cruel summer girl are you? Okay, so you go ahead and start with Jeanette, and then I'll pick up with Kate, because this show focuses on two main characters, Jeanette and Kate, and so we're going to talk about them both so you know what's going on.
All right, so we meet Jeanette Turner as she turns 15 years old in 1993. Jeanette has braces, glasses, crimped hair, and an innocence that really highlights her awkwardness. Mm-hmm. She has two best friends, Mallory and Vince, and they spend all their time together. Mm-hmm. In fact, this summer, they've made a list of things they'd like to accomplish over the summer, like stealing and playing hide and seek in someone's house. Items that might show they'd like a little bit of a brush with the wild side.
Ooh, crimped hair. You're like, is it 1983 or 1993? But I would like to just one aside here, which, we're on point one, and I'm already like, I have something to say. I was 15 in 1993. And I'm probably a little bit more Jeanette, but let's talk about Kate, because we also meet Kate in 1993, and she's the most popular girl in school. Okay, that was not me. She's blonde and pretty. She has rich parents. Her father passed away, so her stepdad is like a former NFL player. And she has a good-looking boyfriend named Jamie, who later has a drinking problem. Yeah. She has two best friends, Tennille, and I think the other one is named Renee. That's what I remember, but I feel like their part in the show is basically to be like the popular girl sidekicks. So
Yeah.
Sidekick A and sidekick B. No offense to the actress who played Renee. You were great, or whatever her name was. But truly, it seems like Kate's mom, Joy, is her best friend. Jeanette is desperate to be friends with Kate, or to at least experience what it might be like to be Kate Wallis. But life is not always what it seems. Am I right? Kate feels controlled. She's lonely, and she's trying to keep a secret about her mom having an affair. Because of the events in her family, like the events around town and the high status of her parents, she meets the new vice principal, Martin Harris. And so it's not so strange that she might run into this person. Whereas, like, the rest of us who might not have these high status parents and all these different events with people around town, we're like, oh my God, the vice principal. It's like Mean Girls when you see a teacher outside of school, it's like a dog walking on its hind legs. But nonetheless, what we find is that Kate befriends Martin Harris, or actually, let's state that correctly. Martin befriends Kate.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us about 1994, Jeanette.
All right. So moving on to 1994. Jeanette Turner looks a lot different. The glasses, the glasses, braces, and crimped hair are gone. She's a lot more confident and, of course, more popular. Her friendship with Mallory is strained while Vince is still there, but now her social circle looks different, adding in Renee and Neil and a boyfriend, Jamie. Dun, dun, dun.
Those sound like some names we've already heard. And I also love, I know it's just the editing, but she really does have a She's All That makeover moment.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Not Another Teen Movie, where they spoof all the teen movies. And basically, like, the way they talk about makeovers is just take off the glasses and take out the scrunchie. And then it's like, oh my God, you're a completely different person.
Yes. And yep, I love everything about both of those movies. And I'm just glad that they did that spoof.
Yeah. I mean, it's
especially
great.
Because I got to see a semi-naked Chris Evans.
Oh my God, that a lot of people didn't know Chris Evans until Marvel, and I'm like, you need to go way back to Not Another Teen Movie. Yes. Although last year when I watched 500 movies, that's one I revisited. There are a lot of parts that don't hold up, but then there's still a lot of parts that are really funny. So if you can go in and you can cringe and you're like, okay, fast forward.
Yeah, it's definitely a movie of its time.
Yes, like you're like, oh my God, this would not be released today, at least not in this form. All right, so what we got here is a Jeanette and a She's All That makeover going in to her 16th year. So, oh gosh, is she driving? She's got a boyfriend. What? But it's a little different for Kate. So at this time in 1994, Kate Wallis is missing. And so this is where it really goes to the dark side here, right? It's after having a fight with her mom, Kate runs away from home, and this is the night before school starts. And then Kate doesn't show up to school the next day. So it's like, where is she? Is anyone looking for her? We learned, though, that Kate had been held captive by the vice principal, Martin, who, as I corrected myself, befriended Kate. And after a shootout, is what we were told, she's able to come home. And she has a scathing accusation about a classmate. Jeanette Turner, according to Kate, saw Kate in Martin Harris's house and does nothing to rescue her, which is, if true, is heinous and ridiculous and like, oh my God, do like an anonymous note or something if you're scared. I don't know. There's so much you could do to help Kate Wallis. So her life has changed and she sees everyone differently, right? I think the only relationship that might be the same or better is with her stepdad, who she forgives, if you will, for everything that happened before she went missing. But her mom, Tennille and Renee, Jamie, Jeanette, everyone she sees differently. But what then happens is she starts to go to therapy and she becomes friends with Mallory after they connect because they have the same therapist. Again, names we've heard before. So Jeanette and Mallory were friends. And now we have Kate and Mallory. And then 1995 takes a turn.
This is the dark year.
Well, for Jeanette.
Yes, yeah, for Jeanette for sure. So by 1995, Jeanette Turner has been publicly shamed and bullied to the point where she barely leaves her home. She also cut her hair.
Yes, which really helps when they're editing between years.
All right. She has no friends. Her mom has left, and she meets with lawyers regularly because she sues Kate Wallis for defamation. She firmly denies seeing Kate at all.
Martin Harris's house. Yes. She's like, I am the victim here, right? And in 1995, let's say it wasn't just a dark year for Jeanette because something horrible has happened to Kate Wallis. She is a victim in recovery, and it is now her best friend, Mallory, who now they've been friends for a year, who provides her assistance and helps her through. She is also getting prepared for the trial, which is often noted to be difficult because the trauma has impacted her memory. So we have two girls flip-flopping friends and boyfriends and 3 different years. Sort of a wrap up, like that's a lot. And there's a lot that we've left out here. Like just little idiosyncrasies in the families and what might be going on in Vince's life and that sort of thing, just so that we can give you an idea of what the show is about. And then we can specifically talk about some friendship moments. But I do feel like the show is about wanting friends, needing friends, supporting friends. And when it's like, if you don't have friends, or when your friends have betrayed you. And so there's all these really interesting friendship moments. And so that's what we want to talk about, some of the major friendships of the TV show, now that we know a little bit of what it's about. So we know Jeanette, as Amanda told us about what 93, 94, 95 was like for her. She started out really like this mousy, awkward, desperate is a word I would use to describe her, desperate to be like cool and popular and be liked by Jamie and Kate and that sort of thing. But at first, like the first episode, the beginning, I just love Jeanette, Mallory, and Vince, right? Like they are the 3 best friends anyone could have, or so you think, right? And so one of the things that I love about this is they create a summer list. Like it's summer, we are going to do these things, and it feels very much like we don't really have the internet too much, and we don't have cell phones too much, so we need to like come up with something to do to entertain ourselves. And so, but the list is all naughty things, which I don't think I could do. Like, it's like stealing, it's like bringing contraband, it's breaking into someone's house to play hide and seek. Like, I don't think I could do any of those things.
I don't think I could do. It's an anxiety thing. Even watching it, when they were writing the list, I was like, I'm gone. I'm good.
I'm like, if you go to Pinterest, you're not going to find a list like that. Summer challenge is like, go for a bike ride. Take a beach day.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not like, go to your dad's work, steal the keys to this house you think is empty, break into it, play hide and seek, and then get caught by Martin Harris, which is sort of like this summer list starts sort of that storyline or what happens in the show, because Jeanette's dad is a realtor, like the best realtor in town, and it's this empty house. Mallory steals the keys and they go over there and they play hide and seek, and Martin Harris happens to like be putting some stuff in the house before the movers come the next day. And so what we know from this is that Jeanette is maybe cooler than we think she is, because she doesn't, it's just like no. But then when she almost gets caught by Martin, and then she finds a way to like get her friends out of the house without him knowing what they're doing, she like gains like this confidence, this attitude, like this adrenaline, and she comes out and they're like, oh my god, I can't believe that. She's like, that was awesome. Which we'll return to at the end, because it turns out Jeanette has a problem about breaking into that house, which is why Kate Wallis believes that Jeanette saw her. But so what are did you do things like this in the summer with your friends? Did you have summer lists? Did you have like clubs? Did you have anything that you and your friends would do during the summer?
I don't think we had a list of stuff like this. And now that I'm trying to think of what I did,
You're like, we did nothing. It was probably
don't think
ride around on our bikes and then go wherever there's a pool or air conditioning.
Yeah, basically. My friend group in high school was like gamer kids.
What a bunch of nerds. No, just kidding.
And anime kids, because I went to like anime club for a little bit at the library after school.
Oh,
and I don't feel like we did any of these things. It was just like we would maybe go over to someone's house because we'd like be playing video games or something.
Yeah. And one of the things is like if you think about like what you did with your friends during summer, which might be different than the school year, right? Because you might have more time. It might just be like, I'm going over to this person's house, and you just get on your bike and your parents are like, be home by the time the street lights are on, those sorts of things. And you might just like play, someone might have a pool. Now that I think about it too, once I turned 16, I had a job. Maybe that was part of the problem. Maybe these kids should have been working.
I just remembered two things. That was another. I did work. I think when I turned 16 or 17 is when I was like working during the summer.
Yeah.
And I worked at a baseball stadium. But then I just remembered we were really into Dance Dance Revolution. I forgot about this. Maybe I tried to repress this memory. But there was I don't remember what the place was called, but it was like,
is it like an arcade that has it in the place?
It was sort of, it reminded me of Chuck E. Cheese, but it wasn't Chuck E. Cheese. I don't remember. I'll have to think of it.
But it's not Dave and Buster's, somewhere in between. Between.
But they had the DDR pads, and so occasionally that would be our thing. We would go there and we would play other games at this place, but for the most part it was just this DDR. Major Magics, I think that's what it was called.
Oh, I don't think we had that in Lansing, Michigan. Maybe you were just lucky to live where they had one. But that's the thing is like summer's like this time to bond. And I love right away that they create this list together and they have rules about it. Like you have to follow it. And so maybe we didn't all have a summer list, but we might have, pool time, or maybe it was like we get into trouble. Maybe it's watching movies, whatever, but there's a lot of bonding time. And when these three friends come together to bring contraband, like Jeanette stole her brother's like nudie magazine. And what did he bring? I forgot what he brought. Something like similar to that, like that level. And then Mallory bought her mom's wheat. And Jeanette freaks out, and then Mallory has to go home, and Jeanette says she flushed the weed down the toilet, and they get in a fight. And then later at the end of the episode, you see her with like a joint, like practicing in the mirror.
Yeah, she's like, how cool am I? What do I look like with this? So, I guess maybe that was a hint there.
Yeah. Red flag alert. But it's one of those things like, okay, so they're all in this together, which can be good because you can bond over things like that. You can become closer. You share secrets, right? Like the contraband, or Vince wanted to steal, was it a Liz Fair CD?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so they're like, and then like the alarm goes off, but like Jeanette takes credit for it because she knows she won't get as much trouble as him. But then like Mallory leaves them behind. So then it becomes like this moment of like, that's awesome. My friend has my back. Right. But then it's also like, she just ran out. She left us. Right. So it becomes like these moments of conflict as well. And I just think it's an interesting, and at that age where maybe people are changing, and Jeanette obviously wants to be friends with other people, and they don't understand, right? And so that kind of leads us to like, how are Jeanette and Vince friends? They live near each other and they've known each other since birth, right? So what did you think about their friendship?
I felt I didn't really feel like they had that strong of a friendship. Maybe not in 1993, the first year at least, because for the most part, a lot of it just seemed like, for sure, Mallory being like the head honcho of the threesome.
She's the alpha.
But then also maybe, there's butting heads with Jeanette. And then I feel like Vince was just like, I don't know, guys. I want to be friends with you both.
I'm Switzerland.
He probably just struggled so much there with that. And
that's a really good point, because I think like there are certain moments when like Jeanette's like, I don't mean to talk bad about Mallory. And he's like, you're right. You shouldn't be talking bad about her. And I think like you're right, though, because Mallory is like the most dominant member of this friendship group, that maybe he doesn't want to deal with the wrath, or that he doesn't want to break up the band, so to speak, and that if the two girls are fighting, that the three of them won't be friends. And then that is an awkward situation. Like he'll be in the middle. But I do think they have that friendship where it might feel obligatory at times because they've known each other for so long. But there are really some neat moments between Jeanette and Vince. I do think that her taking the fall for him with the CD is cool. I think it might be another red flag for Jeanette. That she knows that her dad is not going to tell her mom, and that her dad's going to let her get away with it. And it's like, hey, aren't you a good girl? Or maybe you're manipulating everyone, who knows? But like, I think like a lot of people might not do that because they don't want to get in trouble, especially at that age. And she knows that his grandparents are going to punish him more severely. But I also think like we learn that Vince is gay. And I think there is never a wavering moment from Jeanette. Like she's always supportive, and she asks him questions, even though most of the show focuses on her. You see him checking in on her during all these terrible moments later when they're no longer really friends. Like she's just pulled away from everyone. And I think in 93, the three of them are friends. In 94, she's kind of friends with Vince. And you see some of those moments where she asks about Ben, who's the guy that Vince likes. And then in 95, you see him checking in on her because she has no friends. Right. And so like, I think there's like these really cool moments, but sometimes I think they feel like they have to be friends with each other.
Yeah. And I mean, I do remember sort of, I think it was 94 when she just kind of set Vince aside because of all of the rumors and everything happening, that I think she was trying to take him into account, like his feelings and everything, because she didn't want him to like get involved with all of it. So she just like isolated herself from him and whatnot. Yeah. But I think that there could have been more of a friendship there if she would have been maybe like embraced it more.
Yeah.
But
I think like if other people, even though a lot of the other people like that participate in public shaming and bullying, I'm just like, court of public opinion is always trash. So it makes me just like, ugh. But if we're going to think about people's perception of her, if she would have kept him closer in the sense of maintain that friendship, that people might have believed her more, because he is, although they might, they're kind of like a misfit group. It's not like they fit in anywhere necessarily, which is why their friendship, the three of them, was kind of cool. But if you see that he never left, that he's standing by her, then people might be like, oh, maybe she's telling the truth about not seeing Kate. But I think it comes down to, in this group, is Mallory. Oh my gosh. She's like the Regina George, but not Regina George. You know what I mean? Like
yeah. And it was one of those things where I struggled so much because I feel like the actress is beautiful, and I loved all of her outfits and her hair.
She was great.
And then I was like, your attitude, though, Mallory.
Why don't you go in your room and fix your attitude? Which is probably like, we probably all had a little bit of a tude when we were tweens/teens, you know what I mean? And if you like don't fit in, which I don't think this group did, that you feel like you're defensive, right? Like you feel like your back is up against the wall. And I think that's where some of the attitude comes from. And like, maybe we learn a little bit, she's in therapy for various reasons, including her parents' divorce. Maybe she feels abandoned. Maybe she feels certain ways. She doesn't want to lose her friends. And so maybe seeing Jeanette have some interest in wanting to be friends with Kate is hurtful. And I think any of us might feel bad if like our best friend doesn't want to spend time with us anymore, or not that they don't want to spend time with us anymore, but we just know that if they do start spending time with Kate or someone else, that the time for the two of them to be together will decrease. And so it's jealousy, right? You feel like your relationship that you value, that value is decreasing. And, my first question here that I had though is, should they have ever been friends? Should Jeanette and Mallory have ever been friends? You got the mousy girl who's maybe a little bit more trouble than she puts off. And then you have all trouble, but maybe her bite isn't as big as her bark. But can you see Jeanette and Mallory being friends?
Yes and no. I'm very curious. I almost want to like go back many years to be like, so wait, how did they meet? When did they become friends?
Yeah.
But I feel like it's so easy to become friends at that point with someone that, down the line you won't get along with, because like in a way I sort of could relate to Jeanette and Mallory's friendship, because I feel in a way it sort of mirrors to a point the friendship that I had in high school and stuff growing up. And we met when we were like 10, because we ended up going to like we rode the same bus or something. Yeah. Me and another girl. So it was 3 of us all together. And it kind of like high school was very rocky, and then college was very rocky, and then shortly after college we didn't stay friends.
Say goodbye. Yeah. And there's so many different points in life where you can drift apart, but I think that's a good point, is that like when you make friends with when you're younger, it's usually has to do with proximity. You go to the same church, you live across the street, you're in the same class. And so it's like, let's go back to the day they met. What does that look like? We know that Vince and Jeanette live across the street, but I don't think we really learn too much about their friendship before. And so it's kind of like, was it one of those things like maybe Mallory started changing before? Did she always dress that way? Like, and for those of you who haven't seen it, and obviously this is an audio medium, like she's sort of like that, the 90s, like punk grunge, later maybe emo phase in terms of, and people can correct me, it's more minute, and she has her own style and that sort of thing. But there's a lot of black or bright clothes that like my mom probably would have never let me wear, and she dyed her hair, those sorts of things.
I feel like her style probably did go a little bit more towards like the grungy.
Yeah, 90s. Which was the 90s. Hello. Gotta have some plaid in there, right?
Yeah, the plaid and like the shorts with the
tights.
The like,
good stuff. Like there was a lot of good clothing moments. There's other moments where I was like, I don't think that fits. It might feel more like 2021's version of the 90s. But I think like I like what you say though, that you can resonate with their friendship, and I can resonate with each of them. Like that there is sort of like, okay, so if Vince and Jeanette met and they lived across the street, there's obligatory there. Maybe they also have one where it's like, well, who else am I going to be friends with? Right? Or we were in class together, and It might even be like extroverted with an introvert. Like Mallory's much more outgoing than, say, Jeanette. Maybe it's just like, I claim you.
Mhm.
Now I'm dragging you with me. And maybe that's not, doesn't work out. And they don't know who they are for themselves, right? They're 14,
Mhm.
15, going to 16, 17. And so I think it makes sense that they could grow apart. And I also think that, there's a pretty important moment when Jeanette stands up for herself. So let's go down to that. So Mallory is mad because one of the items on their list was a prank tape that they do on the first day of school back. This is when Kate goes missing. I mean, they don't know that at that time, right? When they made the prank tape, but it coincides with her going missing. And so it's already a strained relationship among Vince, Mallory, and Jeanette. And so um, Vince and Jeanette are supposed to each watch a hallway. And Mallory is mad because they both bailed on her when she went into the AV room to air the prank tape. Jeanette wants to share news because she does overhear that Kate Wallis is missing, but Mallory doesn't care. She's tired of hearing Jeanette talk about Kate Wallis, and she's mad because she abandoned her. So Mallory, talking about Kate, says, A, she's the worst, and B, she's way out of your league. What's wrong with your league? You start here. Highlighted part.
Mallory got detention because of them abandoning her. And
Yes.
Vince lies, saying it was a teacher that made him leave. And Jeanette says, "What's your excuse for abandoning me and Vincent after we went shoplifting?"
Mallory said, "I thought we were past that."
Maybe I'm not past you. You're pushing me around all the time and calling all the shots.
Mallory says, "What are you talking about?"
So Jeanette says, "My mom says it's natural for best friends to grow apart. Friends, they don't bully one another. It's everything you want or else. That's not a friendship. Maybe I want to make some of my own choices. Maybe I want to make some new friends."
Mallory says, "So what, you don't want to be friends with me and Vince anymore?"
And Jeanette says, "I didn't say anything about Vincent."
Mallory says, "Got it." And she leaves, and we see her crying as she leaves. So this is sort of like a really big moment where Jeanette finally says what she feels to Mallory. And you can see, what's wrong with your league? Like, Kate's out of your league. I'm your league. Why do you want to abandon me? You've already abandoned me in the hallway. You're going to abandon me for Kate. But then she comes back and says, "You abandon us." And so it turns into this whole thing that sort of ends their relationship. And so at that point, then on, you can feel that Mallory is very upset with Jeanette. And in fact, she is really keen on seeing Jeanette get busted or get hers or whatever. She's just like really into seeing Jeanette suffer. So, do you think it's, one of the questions might be, is it fair that Mallory hates that Jeanette wants to be friends with Kate? And I think it comes down to jealousy, and that's perfectly natural. It's how you manage it. And it's whether or not Jeanette still wants to be friends with Mallory. If they still want to be friends, like, why can't we figure out, and that's assuming that Kate wants to be friends with Jeanette, right? So there's like all these things that come into play. And this is happening in high school when people are figuring out who they are, and they, and most people want to fit in and feel connected, and people want to be liked and feel popular. Some people don't, but a lot of people do. And I think Mallory shows that some friends don't move on from sort of these breakups. So I don't think the rage that Mallory feels for Jeanette after this moment ever decreased.
No. I would say it probably got worse when she became friends with Kate, because then it was like friends talk about a common enemy. So,
and that's a great segue. Oh my, and she didn't even, that's not even in the script, y'all. But it's true. So we do see a lot of flip-flopping. So I think that's like the most important friendships that we see. And then the next most important is with Kate and Mallory. And so Mallory hates Kate in 93, hates her. And
just a lot of straight up does not like her at all.
She's the worst, right? She has a lot of choice things to say about her. And it might just be what some people say about the popular kids because they don't know them. And And some popular kids are nice and some are a-holes, and sometimes we don't know. They might be fine, but
that was something I was going to say. I feel like is kind of the high school thing where you just don't like somebody for whatever reason. And if somebody asks you why you don't like them, you're just like, I don't know. You don't also feel this way?
Well, and I also think when we talk about teasing and bullying in my classes, that one of the things is that popular kids can be bullied too because they're different. And sometimes I think people are like Jeanette, what would it be like? But instead of being mean to the popular kids, she wants to be friends with them. And so maybe it's ways to approach popular kids. Do you just want to trash them like Mallory, or do you want to be with them or like them like Jeanette? And so that leads it to, so I don't know that Kate knows Mallory, which is fine. Right? Whatever, you can't know everyone. So I don't think she has a whole lot of interaction with Mallory, right? But Mallory cannot stand Kate. And so then Kate goes missing, and then she's found later, and she goes to therapy. And when she comes out, Mallory's in the waiting room. They have a shared therapist, and that's probably one of their most earnest, it's truly a first interaction. But how do you talk to someone that you hated, who was kidnapped and has gone through this trauma? And she kind of does this awkward thing, Kate asks why you're there. And I think that's a way of trying to understand therapy and what she's doing and why other people would go if they weren't kidnapped. And she's like, oh well, my parents are divorced. And Kate's like, that's it? She's like, well, there's some other things too, but this isn't a trauma competition, right? Yours was, that's a pretty big trauma. And I think that what we can see is that in the first friendship, the group of three, that they can bond to become friends because of proximity, but then also creating this summer list and doing those things together. But that you can also see that people can come very close when they have some shared experience. And it doesn't mean that Mallory was also abducted. It means she understands what it's like to go to therapy and talk to her about it, and might have a better understanding of it than others. And I can imagine therapy at this time. I mean, I didn't know anyone who went to therapy when I was 15. I'm sure there might have been a few people, but it's not the same now where everyone's going to therapy.
Yeah, and well, that's the other thing too, is it's the 90s and it was still somewhat stigmatized.
It still is now. Sometimes all students tell me that they can't go to therapy because they're on their parents' insurance and their parents don't believe in therapy. And I'm like, oh goodness. It's people who want therapy.
I mean, yes, definitely. We're a little bit.
We're chugging along.
We're a smidge better.
Yes, I would agree with that. Maybe a smidge and a half better.
We talk about it more.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and so I think it makes sense that Kate cannot connect with Tennille and Renee anymore, right? What are they going to talk about? She's having troubles connecting with her boyfriend, and she doesn't understand why he dated Jeanette when she was gone. She doesn't understand her parents, and I think saw her mom as a friend. So it's just one of those things, she doesn't have anyone, and she has a stepsister, and her stepsister had shut down a relationship even the year before, before she went missing. And so to me, it makes sense that she would want to connect with Mallory. That was almost a perfect setup, even though it wasn't a setup, And then Kate invites Mallory over, and when Mallory gets there, she discovers that it's Kate's birthday, and she's like, you invited me here on your birthday? That is, usually when it's people's birthdays, like your friends' birthdays, and you do things or you say happy birthday or whatever, but at that time she didn't have those connections. And
Mhm.
and so we start to see them develop a friendship, that Mallory sit with her while she's listening to the recordings of her therapy to help her prepare for the trial. So my question is, do you think that Mallory and Kate are a good match, or maybe are they a better match than Jeanette and Mallory? Mm.
I think they're a better match.
Mhm,
I wasn't a fan of all of their friendship stuff that we saw. Like,
mhm.
Mallory just kind of kept a secret from Kate.
We'll talk about that
Um,
in a little bit.
yeah. And I feel like a lot of it too, on Mallory's side at least, was just the kind of like what I mentioned before, the common enemy
Yeah, that's a really good
thing.
point.
Um,
'Cause she hates Jeanette, like,
yeah,
Mallory hates her,
I think
so can make her feel better, like, "She's terrible, she's the worst, she's," and then you're like, you feel like, she's hyping you up, you know what I
yeah.
mean?
But like at the same time, I do feel like for Kate, Mallory was a good person to have to go to about a lot of stuff and to help Kate heal in a
Mhm.
way.
Yeah,
Because no one else really like Renee and Tennille were just, we didn't really get much of their character, but they're very
they're fair
superficial.
weathered friends.
Mhm. Like I could, as soon as I saw them, I was like, these people don't talk about anything serious. I don't know
Yeah,
if I could.
yeah.
So I don't think Kate and Mallory, friendship wise, is like the best friendship it could be. I think it was gonna be better than Jeanette and
Mhm,
Mallory because, and maybe, so I guess too, to go along with that, I think Kate and Mallory in that year specifically, if it was like Mallory trying to be friends with Kate before all of the
mhm,
stuff with Martin, I
mhm.
don't think it would. I think there's just this kind of, I guess, character development that happened with Kate.
It's almost
That
like Kate can see things differently than she did before,
Mhm,
or that she's trying to understand things more than she did before.
mhm,
And so I think one of the things that stereotypically we get is that popular girls are mean, and I don't think Kate was. I mean, all the times that we see like the awkward crimped hair Jeanette, "Hi, I'm in your class. Oh, hi. Yeah, we should do a
it was
girls'
mostly
day."
like her mom just being a B
Yeah,
word.
Joy is not very nice, but Kate was very pleasant, like, and I think she would have given Mallory the time of day, but I don't think they would have been friends, but I think there was just it's unfortunate because of what happened, but it changed her, and I think, like, maybe they won't be friends forever, but that at the very least that Kate could look back and be like, "This is the friend I needed at this time." And
Yeah.
we all have
Mhm,
those kinds of friends that might come and go at different times when we
mhm.
might need them or they might need us. And I think
Yeah.
there's a really cool moment. I have a cool moment with Mallory. I'll give her props for this because I mean the actress is great. Harley Quinn Smith, right? Kevin Smith's daughter.
Mhm.
I thought she was great. This is not anything about the acting performance. She was so good. I hated her character. But there's a cool moment and then a hypocritical moment. So let's start with the good moment first. And that is so she goes over to Kate's, is invited on her 16th birthday, but she doesn't know that it's Kate's 16th birthday. So then the next year, 95, Kate's gonna be 17, and Mallory is like, "It's our 1-year friendiversary," which I was like, "Yes, thank you for using that. Yep, love it. Let's
Yeah,
celebrate
I think I
friendship."
thought of you when they said that. I was like,
Thank you. Love it. Although I don't think friendiversary was a word then, I'll still take it. I'll still take it. Um, but she comes and she's like, "You, this is gonna be a good day. I'm the keeper of your birthday, so your mom's negative
Mhm,
stuff is not coming in." And she takes her to the roller rink where she's a manager, which is perfectly 90s as well, maybe late 80s. And they have the whole roller rink to themselves. They get dressed up and they roller skate and they eat food. And then Kate's sister, I honestly don't know how I'd still be standing without you, Mal. And like, I thought that was like a really neat friendship moment. Like Mallory did all these things to make it
Yeah.
a special day. And I think Kate even says, this is the best birthday I've ever had.
Yeah, I do think one of the things I did like about Mallory's character was how she talked to Joy, so Kate's mom. I think that was a good...
She did not respect her elders.
No, but like it was...
But it was necessary.
It was not great, but yeah, it was...
She had the balls to do it, man, or the ovary.
Where I can definitely... I feel like I can...
She had the bravery to do it.
Yeah, like if Jeanette was friends with Kate or something, I can just see Jeanette being like all over Joy, just like worshiping her. And
exactly. Which is interesting because her mom, Jeanette's mom, tells her that Joy was the one following her around. So in some ways, Joy and Jeanette are similar. And so if Joy is turned into this miserable person, then maybe that's Kate's path too. And it's just their way of foreshadowing. But we can't get all Mallory happy because I have a bone to pick. And that is, she's so mad. She's so mad at Jeanette for wanting to be friends with Kate. And then she becomes friends with Kate. And there's like something there where I was like, oh, you hated her. But in her defense, she does say that I did not like you. Right?
Yeah.
So she does do that. But I'm like, for as much crap as you gave Jeanette, like it couldn't like soften a little bit when you meet
like
Kate.
You kind of
she's like
Jeanette an apology in that sense. Like
I can see why you would want to be friends with someone like Kate, because I want to be friends with someone like Kate, and I am friends with her, and you probably would have liked her a lot too. Like I wish there was just like that moment, even if it was to herself, writing in a diary. A voiceover, if you will.
Yeah. Like, and the thing too with Mallory is in a way, I can sort of understand how she would be frustrated with Jeanette on multiple levels, where it's like, one, you're just talking about Kate so much. Like, what's your deal there?
It's like an obsession is, I think, what Mallory thinks. Yeah.
And a lot of it was to do with the scrunchie too. Like, she was just like, why are you still wearing that scrunchie? And I even was like, why are you still wearing that scrunchie?
Yeah, so Mallory leaves her take that back. Kate leaves her scrunchie at the booth that Martin is running at this like festival / fair, whatever you want to call it. And so he takes it, and I think it can be a moment for him to further groom Kate, but what he ends up doing is giving it to Jeanette. Jeanette says, oh, I can give it to her, but he probably doesn't want to come across like, no, I'll give it to her.
Oh, yeah. No,
and so, but then she wears it. She has it in her hair. She's wearing it on the wrist.
She's like, oh, this old thing. And she's shoving it in.
She's like waving with that wrist so that everyone can see Kate's
Martin definitely did not want to give that to Jeanette.
He wanted to keep it for sure,
but he just was like, he wasn't paying attention and he was holding it, and Jeanette was just like, oh, I know that's Kate's scrunchie. This is my moment.
Well, and it's like, what does she think was going to happen? Like, she even practices in the mirror like what she's going to say to Kate with oh, no problem. Here's your scrunchie. Like she's even practicing, which, as a communication person, I'm like, people probably should practice things they say before they say them. Like, especially if it's your first time doing something, like we could all benefit from maybe working through big moments. And it makes sense that like a teenager might, but it's something that you might imagine more that someone would do practicing when it's their crush. Like we see Kate doing that in terms of Martin, and like we might expect that more. Not that I'm like, oh, it's romantic focused when it comes to Jeanette and Kate, but I just think that's what we think. It's more obsessive in that nature. Like
there was
romantic.
A lot of back and forth in my head about a lot of different characters' sexual orientations, to be honest with, because at first meeting Jeanette, my mind is just like, oh, she just wants to be popular. So she wants to become friends with Kate. And then, when she was practicing that in the mirror, I was like, where are we going with this? Is she like crushing on her? Because like whatever is fine.
Who cares, right? Yeah, but I do think it does feel romantic in that way, but I think that what it might come down to is that it's an obsession. Like she is focused on Kate, and I just think that like also with female friendships that historically they used to be called romantic friendships because they were more intimate and things like that. Not meaning, not having anything to do with sex, but it was just more intimacy. And so, there's just something there. Maybe we'll come back to that. I mean, I think we've noted some red flags throughout, but it does, in fact, they use the word friendship a number of times to refer to Kate and Martin. My notes say grooming MFer. So basically everything he does is to get the moments until Kate is in his house. So I don't want to talk about Martin. F him. But Kate, they talked about serious things. Like he did tell her that his dad completed suicide by a gun. Right. And so she heard that he knew the family secret. They talked about these really important topics. He didn't make her feel, he was not critical of her. He made her feel safe. But it feels like it feels like they're friends. And that's why then you start to see those moments after the night she sees him at the fair. And she wins, he gives her a bunny, like she wins the game or whatever, he gives her the bunny, takes the bunny home, and then she starts practicing and saying things to Martin in the mirror, much like Jeanette did to Kate, right? So
yeah, it definitely can be interpreted as a friendship from like Kate's side, because that's how she was seeing it.
That's how she felt. And she didn't have any other friends, right? Like,
she didn't have anyone that she felt like she could go to for things except him, but then on his part, it was all manipulated and calculated. And because he specifically knew this stuff, and just even the things like, I think he said it to her at the fair. He was, manipulating her basically as soon as he saw her, because he was saying like, the first time I saw you, I thought you were one of the adults. So he's basically like, so you're much more mature than the other girls.
Yeah. So the compliments, the making her feel safe, that he can help her, he can protect her. And so this is a spoiler that hasn't been mentioned yet. And it doesn't come in, it comes in about halfway through the show. So if you haven't seen it and you don't want to know the spoiler is, I would skip about 20 seconds or 30 seconds. But what ends up happening, which I was surprised about, but then not because of all the grooming, is that he doesn't actually kidnap her. She goes into the house willingly the night that she has the fight with her mom. Her mom slaps her, calls her a bitch, or a brat. She calls her mom a bitch, and then she gets slapped. And so she's like, I don't know where else to go, because if I go to Jamie's or I go to Tennille or Renee's, my mom will come and get me. And so then the next day she doesn't go to school, and it turns into, she then becomes officially a missing person. And so that's the thing, is like, there's no way she'd go in there willingly without that grooming.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So she thinks she's going to a friend for help that her mom doesn't know about. So, but I think that's all we need to say about him, because again, F that guy. So let's talk about Jeanette and Kate. So this is more, we've covered some of it. So I had some questions about the scrunchie. Like, she tells people, she overhears that Kate didn't come to school. So she like tells Jamie that she's missing, because the boyfriends are always the first people the police question. And I just wanted to warn you. I was like, oh my gosh, she's like a murderino. The boyfriend is the first. But like, yeah, so we kind of already talked a little bit about, like, Kate was very nice to her, asked her questions like, yeah, let's do a girls' day. Let's do, very polite. And then we know that Jeanette held under her scrunchie. She was practicing things, wanted to desperately be friends with her or be like her. So do you think they could have been friends? And if so, if Kate had not gone missing, what would 1994 look like?
I don't think they could have been friends.
Okay.
I don't think it would have happened. I think they maybe would have been like slightly more than just acquaintances. I could see it maybe being like if they run into each other in public enough and like go to the same things as like Kate and her mom.
Yeah.
Maybe. But I feel like there was too much of like an obsession vibe coming from Jeanette that I don't think they would have been friends, or if they would have, it would have been a very weird dynamic.
Yeah, I think, I can get on board with that. I think that in some cases that, Kate had always been polite and nice and kind. And those are three very different things. So I just like opened up a can of worms. I'll just say Kate was always kind to her. And I think like she would continue to do that. But I think then when people try too hard, which is what I expect Jeanette to do, that can wear on people, not like intentionally, but it's just something that I think naturally happens. And so I think at some point, even if it wasn't her intention, that Kate would have hurt Jeanette's feelings. And then it would have been difficult to sort of smooth that out. So, but if Kate had not gone missing, I think we would see a Jeanette who didn't have braces, but maybe still has glasses, maybe slightly better hair, but would have kept the glasses. Maybe still friends with Vince, but still having conflicts with Mallory and hoping to date someone, but being jealous of Kate for dating, or being envious of Kate for dating Jamie. That's what I think would have happened. And I think Kate would have continued to be unhappy though, because her friendships didn't have any depth. I don't think her relationship with Jamie would have worked out. So something else might have needed to happen for her to change the relationships in her life. Because I don't want to say kidnapping or what happened to her should have happened, but I think like her way of handling it was to have like more meaningful relationships with folks, or at least cutting off the ones that weren't good and sort of maintaining the ones that were.
Yeah. I think too, going back to like Jeanette and Kate being friends, I think part of it too is I don't know if Jeanette would have been welcomed into like her friend group, because there might have been some hostility or like bullying from Renee and
they were awful. Never fun.
Where they probably would have just been like, Kate, what are you doing? Why is she here? Like, what?
And then you just wondered though if Kate would have been like, get over it, guys, she's nicer than you, and dumped them and became best friends with Jeanette, until then Jeanette became weird and then she was like, oh God, what did I do?
Who knows? It could have gone so many ways.
So this is another spoiler, but so when they go to trial in the finale, they bring that transcript that Derek found on Ashley's computer, and on the stand they go through and authenticate it and that sort of thing, and basically it turns out that Kate was wrong. Or that she went in willingly and no one knew, and that maybe she didn't see Jeanette. So they end up meeting. So they finally come together. They've had very few scenes together in this entire series, and they finally come together, and Kate wants to meet at Martin's house, which feels weird. Like Jeanette's like, of all the places, why here? But they actually are able to talk it out. And what they discover, again, spoiler alert, is that it wasn't Jeanette outside on a bike. It was in fact Mallory, and Mallory had been following Jeanette to see her get busted for breaking into Martin's house yet again, right? And so we discover that Mallory is the one that saw Kate in the house, which we'll talk about in a minute. But Kate's like, I'm sorry. So would you have been as forgiving as Jeanette was to someone who basically ruined your life because like public shaming and things like that, accused her of not helping her, and Jeanette stays and helps her remember what happened the night, and we discover, again, spoiler alert, that Martin is going to commit suicide. It's in fact Kate who shoots him, and it's with the gun that he calls a family heirloom. So it's the gun that his dad used, and Kate ends Martin's life. So if you were Jeanette, is that enough to be like, hey, sorry about that? I thought it was you. Or do you think Jeanette has a reason to be mad at Kate?
I'm
stumping you with the questions.
No, I'm just like, I'm so torn because it's like they aired everything out. They talked about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like she should be able to forgive her like she did. But I'm also just like, you went through a year of hell, Jeanette.
Yeah.
How can you just be like, okay, cool? Because I think that if I was Jeanette, like, I'm not in probably, high school times, my brain is just not developed enough. So I probably would have been like, no, F you, Kate.
Yeah. Like, you've ruined my life. But, if Kate coming forward and she does a press conference and indicates that it wasn't Jeanette, like that does help Jeanette. I don't know if I could be as forgiving, but maybe because of her obsession with Kate and she's finally got what she wanted, right? Mm-hmm. She wants people to like her. And now she's no longer this person that didn't help a kidnap victim, which again, not everyone knows until it's revealed in court that she went into the house. And we say willingly, but it's not, right? I mean, she was groomed, but she went there and then she lived in the house for many months before she was locked in the basement. So that is a big reveal though. And so that takes us back to Mallory and Kate. Spoilers. So in that conversation, they discover Mallory is the one who saw Kate, not Jeanette. Would you be, Kate forgives Mallory? And I'm like,
I was
girl,
so mad.
What?
I was pretty mad about that because, well, okay, again, I can see both sides. Where I understand Mallory's point where she was like, I was trying to keep your secret.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I feel like Mallory, you could have told Kate. It was her secret. You could have told Kate that.
And then she could have.
As long as you're not holding it over Kate's head. Yeah. Then I think it would have been fine. And so, I just like, I don't think I would have been able to forgive somebody like that.
Because she just is like, I can't basically, well, we'll get to like the closure of the show, but she forgives Mallory. And I'm glad you said that because I had forgotten about that part where she's like, it's because it was your secret. And there's moments that we saw in a different point of view that we didn't know Mallory was there. And then we see it in the series finale. And then Mallory is like crying, like she's upset about what's happened, that she thought it was like maybe Martin's girlfriend or, she didn't know. And then Kate was found and then she realized what's going on. And then, but she still didn't get Kate help, knowing what she knew. And then she befriended her knowing this but she never did anything. And so I think you're exactly right. Like, okay, fair. Like the secret is that she was not locked in the house at that time. Right. But then she was later locked. So here's the thing. That was on Christmas Eve. Kate wasn't found until summer. So everything else happens during summer. Right. So there are still months that she didn't know what was going on. Right. And so she could have probably done something, Kate's still missing, or, maybe she's saying that she didn't know until she was found in summer. But I mean,
I think she was saying that like she saw the news thing and that's when she realized the blonde lady that she saw was Kate.
Yeah.
But
I think it would have been there. Part of me as the show ended, I wanted Kate to get a little bit back at her, and I'm not a revenge person at all, but I was like, you are too forgiving. So let us talk. So I think that's a big dent in their friendship. And like Kate is forgiving, but I wonder if she's forgetting, right? You know what I mean? Like if that's something that she could forget, maybe that changes the friendship later if we were to see it 5 years in the future, for example. So the end of the show, she basically forgives Mallory. Mallory is she's packing up her stuff. She's like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
You'll never see me again. And she's like, I can't go on without you. How dare you leave? Right. And so she stays. And that's where I'm still like, Kate, like, I get it, but also like she knew, and she could at least said, like, this is really hard for me. I saw you in there. I didn't realize. And then, what do you want to do? Because this is your information, right? But I think, though, if we think about Jeanette wanting to be friends with Kate so bad, for example, and then that sort of turns around and Mallory befriends her, she doesn't want to lose the friendship because the friendship with Jeanette was strained. She was always so mad at Jeanette for wanting to be friends with Kate. She's finally friends with Kate. She doesn't want to lose Kate. She still wants to be friends with her. So you wouldn't want to do anything to rock the boat, right? And so I think there's ways she could have gone about that. That could have been resolved in some other ways. And like, I guess it's up to the person whether or not they forgive. I'm just surprised. But then again, I'm also surprised to hear that, like, parents forgive the people who have murdered their children more easily than someone forgives someone for like cutting them off in traffic. Like, it's, forgiveness is a really interesting topic. I definitely want to do an episode of fatalities about a case that includes that forgiveness, because it's really fascinating, like how unwilling we are to forgive people for day-to-day stuff and how the process that like parents go through to forgive. So I can kind of translate that to Kate, like that she needs to forgive Mallory. Her life, she can't go on, right? And so, but then we find that Jeanette is no longer hated. She's back with Jamie, and she's being interviewed on the TV show that Kate Wallis was interviewed on, when she named Jeanette as the person who saw her and did nothing to save her. And on that episode of that TV show with Kate wears a headband and pearls because her mom has controlled what she looks like. And once you know what Jeanette wears during her interview, which she seems very peppy, got some pep in her step in that interview with her pearls and her headband, just like Kate Wallis. This is all she ever wanted. She's no longer the most hated woman in America. She's liked. And then, as Amanda was saying off mic, that she has the opportunity to say, Kate Wallis, I forgive you. Like she's a big old actress. Which brings up all of the red flags that we have been talking about throughout this episode, is that we then discover that Jeanette had been back at Martin's house more than we know. She was in that house more than Martin was. What the hell? And when she was in there, she could hear Kate locked in the basement. So this was after Christmas Eve, when she did go into the house and she heard a noise and Kate saw her, but she didn't see Kate. And that's why she thought Jeanette did nothing. But she was like in that house all the time. This time Kate is locked in the basement. So the relationship has changed. Like Martin is all out of options. Like this is bad for him. So he has to lock Kate up. And you can hear, if you can hear me, I'm Kate Wallis. I'm locked up. And she does nothing. And then she smiles as if she goes, what she realizes, what can happen with Kate out of the picture, which probably means dating Jamie or being friends or having her life. So we do in the end, and this is great because when Kate forgives Mallory, she goes, you know what? Jeanette sucks, but she was innocent. That's what Kate says to Mallory about Jeanette. And she wasn't innocent. She was innocent on that day, but she wasn't innocent later. And so, in fact, the accusation that she made, although it was not the right time or the right logistically, she was right. And Jeanette did know that Kate was being held captive at Martin's house, and she did nothing. And in fact, smiled about it. So what's going on with Jeanette, and why was she in Martin's house so much? Like, what is that about? What is her deal?
I don't know. I think the summer list got to her head too much.
Well, there's a moment where Cindy asks Derek, Jeanette's brother about something that happened when they were kids. And she said, Dad always said you suggested it. Was it Jeanette? And Derek doesn't remember. And so she's like going through all these moments where she thinks like Jeanette has done something more inappropriate than what was imagined, or like she's not as innocent as she seems.
Mm-hmm.
And so there might be something going on with Jeanette that is beyond the obsession with Kate Wallis.
Yeah, there's probably something.
Yeah, we're not, I mean, I'm a doctor, but I'm not that kind of doctor, so it would not be appropriate for us to diagnose this character, but certainly it brings up what's going to happen in season 2, right?
Yeah. I mean, with the actions we've seen from Jeanette, there's definitely something going on, because
I think the fact that she continuously breaks into his house, I think is a sign of some deviant behavior that I don't have enough knowledge on to discuss, right? But like there's something going on there, and what she wanted was to be liked and to be popular, to be Kate Wallis, and she figured out a way to do it, and she seems very pleased. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in the next season, if it will be the same story. Like, what if Jeanette goes to college and the next story is like her somewhere else with a different cast of people, right? Like different things coming into play could be interesting. If it's an anthology, so it's different, but they all play different characters. It will be a continuation in the same town. Amanda and I were saying off mic that we thought they wrapped up everything. We have a couple questions. Like we have questions for Ashley and Derek, but maybe Renee. Hey, Renee, what's your name? Is it Renee? I think it's Renee, but I'm not sure. Did anyone call you by your name in the show? But that they wrapped it up nicely. So I think Freeform is probably working triple time coming up with the next season, now that it's picked up.
I mean, and that's the thing I expected them not to wrap things up, and I expected to be super mad about like a cliffhanger. And now that it's like wrapped up, I'm like, I don't know what season 2 would hold for us. So I'm very perplexed.
Yeah, they might have a plan, or so like Veronica Mars, the TV show, the guy who created it, is it Rob Thomas? I think he did it. Also named the singer Rob Thomas, but not the same guy. But anyways, like he had season 1 so tightly packaged and created. Then I was like, oh, we have to do season 2, which is still good, but season 1 is like nearly perfect because of so much work he put into that show, right? Or is it something where they're like, it's like Broadchurch. This was planned to be a 3-season show, and we just have no idea, and they're just gonna blow our minds. So
I mean, I'm excited to see where they go with it. I'm just worried at the same time, because just in general, like the longer that people put shows on for, like season wise, just like the worse it gets. So I'm not really like,
when a show can end on the right time, perfection.
It's so like we don't need multiple seasons of everything.
Hey, here's the thing though. Season 2 might blow our mind. Like Freeform, we're ready for it. Like, I'm ready for next summer. I'm assuming Cruel Summer will happen during summer. So, because if not, that might be cruel. No, you have to wait till winter 2023. No, we do not. No, thank you. So I can't believe how much there was in this show to talk about, because it's like 9 years later and we're still talking about it. It's amazing. Like how much can, in terms of friendship and the things to reflect on and think about, and how we might go about things. So thank you, Amanda, for coming. You're like, I hope there's not a season 2, because then I'm going to have to come back and talk about it. So if
put on my calendar now.
Yes, pencil me in.
Dinner with myself. I just can't cancel that again.
Well, no, I love talking about friendship, and I'm glad to be able to do it with a friend. So thank you so much for being here. And if you like what you have in your ear holes, go ahead and check out some other episodes of Best Forevers. And there's a whole catalog of fatalities. And be sure to check out the Friends with Alysa Patreon. And until next time, consider how even TV shows like Cruel Summer can have us reflect thoughtfully on friendship. Because without our friends or Kate Wallis, who would we be? Kate Wallis is everything. Thanks for listening to Best Forevers. If you like what you hear, be sure to subscribe, rate, review, and of course, share with a friend. Please be sure to follow Best Forevers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Best Forevers Pod, and I'm at Dr. Alysa Lucas on Twitter. You can always find the podcast webpage for more information at bestforeverspod.com and share your stories of friendship by emailing me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to support the movement to love on our friends more, check out the podcast on patreon.com/bestforeverspod. Now, friends, check out this recommended podcast that you must get in your ear holes immediately.
Does the current political climate make you want to move to that island in Japan with a bunch of cats?
No.
Okay, well, you know what I mean, like a beach somewhere, cats optional.
Well, yeah, without the cats, because the current political climate makes me want to be in the fetal position all day.
Check out Feminists Without Mystique. New podcast episodes released every Wednesday. Me wow.
Oh, God.